Welcome back, friends. This is video lesson 3. We're going to continue with book 10 of the Odyssey. In book 10, Odysseus confronts a race of giants and has an encounter with the witch goddess Circe. This video lesson covers two different activities, assignment 39 and assignment 40. I'd like you to start with assignment 39. Assignment 39 is relatively straightforward. You can find it in our remote learning activities module on Canvas. So I ask you to watch a section of the theatrical release of the Odyssey. If you recall, before the closure, we watched the Wind God episode in the film. In this case, I want you to watch from minute 55 to minute 1 hour and 34 minutes and 40 seconds, which will cover the encounter with Circe and go all the way through Odysseus' trip to the underworld. Once you're done with watching the film, I'd like you to read pages 22 to 25 in your graphic classics adaptation of the Odyssey. And then I want you to answer the questions in the assignment 39 worksheet that's embedded in your Canvas assignment. There are 5 questions, and if you answer them in complete sentences, I'll give you up to 2 points per correct response. That's assignment 39. Assignment 40. Assignment 40 is what we will discuss with our text today. If you click on assignment 40, you'll see that there are a number of questions. There are 3. There are 4 questions. And you can type your response to each question right in the blank fields below. There are 3 questions. So why don't we get right to the text? There's an image on the left side of your chart. That's the image of the witch goddess Circe. She is a goddess, a minor goddess. She's very powerful, and she lives on an island in an opulent palace. Now, we also have to be sure we understand where the Circe and the Giants episode falls. Remember that Telemachus is in Ithaca, and he is growing up with his father away. His father is trying to get home from the Trojan War, but he was cursed by Poseidon, and he is wandering. And at some point, Telemachus will leave Ithaca and search for his father. And that is actually the narrative beginning of the poem. Soon after he leaves, and he meets with King Nestor and King Menelaus, who were with his father at Troy, his father ends up shipwrecked with Calypso. The events that we're covering now are the prequel to his shipwreck on Calypso's island. So we know that he's left the shores of Troy after being responsible for the Trojans' defeat with the Trojan horse trick. He encounters the Chaconians, the Lotus Eaters, and then the Cyclops on the Cyclops' island. Then he has his encounter with Aeolus, who gives him the means to get back to Ithaca by putting all the winds except for the west wind into a bag, which his crew becomes suspicious of and opens thinking it's treasure, and they get blown back to the Wind God's island. And that's where we pick up the story today. So let's take a look at our text. You can follow along on the screen. We're going to be focusing on the blue highlighted portion. And I will begin the narration presently.
They entered the sumptuous palace, found his wife inside, a woman huge as a mountain crag who filled them all with horror. Straightway she summoned royal Antiphates from assembly, her husband, who prepared my crew a barbarous welcome. Snatching one of my men, he tore him up for dinner. The other two sprang free and reached the ships, but the king let loose a howling through the town that brought tremendous Laestrygonians swarming up from every side, hundreds, not like men, like giants. Down from the cliffs they flung great rocks a man could hardly hoist, and a ghastly shattering din rose up from all the ships, men in their death cries, hulls smashed to splinters. They speared the crews like fish, and whisked them home to make their grisly meal. But while they killed them off in the harbour depths, I pulled the sword from beside my hip and hacked away at the ropes that bore my blue-prowed ship of war, and shouted rapid orders at my shipmates, "Put your backs in the oars, now row or die." In terror of death they ripped the swells, all as one, and what a joy as we darted out toward open sea, clear of those beetling cliffs. My ship alone, but the rest went down en masse. Our squadron sank.
So Odysseus is left now after this disastrous encounter with the giants with one ship and only a few crew members. We can probably estimate that at about 25. So the question I'd like you to answer in assignment 40 is as follows. After leaving the Wind God's island, Odysseus and his crew encounter a race of giants, the Laestrygonians. The giants attack them and drive them off, sinking all but one of Odysseus' ships. It's not the first time Odysseus has faced enemies that are larger and more powerful than he. What theme or message do you think Homer is trying to share with his audience, always placing Odysseus at a disadvantage as he makes his way home? And you can respond to that answer in the text field below. Let's move on to the next section of text. The next section of text finds Odysseus, after fleeing the giants, on a mysterious island, which this crew recognizes as Circe's island. And Circe would have been known to the ancient Greeks as a mysterious witch goddess. And he decides to do some scouting around to try to locate Circe's palace to see if he can get some food and supplies so he can continue on his way. And to do that, he separates his men into two different units. He calls them platoons. He leads one and another crew member leads another. And they all head off to find the witch Circe. So if you'll listen for the narration.
And so, numbering off my band of men-at-arms into two platoons, I assigned them each a leader. I took one, and Lord Eurylochus the other. We quickly shook lots in a bronze helmet. The lot of brave Eurylochus leapt out first. So he moved off with his 22 comrades, weeping, leaving us behind in tears as well. Deep in the wooded glens they came on Circe's palace, built of dressed stone on a cleared rise of land. Mountain wolves and lions were roaming round the grounds. She bewitched them herself, she gave them magic drugs. But they wouldn't attack my men. They just came pouring up around them, fawning, swishing their long tails, eager as hounds that fawn around their master coming home from a feast, who always brings back scraps to calm them down. So they came nuzzling round my men, lions, wolves with big powerful claws, and the men cringed in fear at the sight of those strange ferocious beasts. But still they paused at her doors, the nymph with lovely braids, Circe, and deep inside they heard her singing. lifting her spellbinding voice as she glided back and forth at her great immortal loom, her enchanting web a shimmering glory only goddesses can weave. Polites, captain of our list, took command, the closest, most devoted man I had. Friends, there's someone inside plying a great loom, and how she sing, enthralling. The whole house is echoing to her song. Goddess or woman, let's call out to her now. So he urged, and the men called out and hailed her. She opened her gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting them all in, and in they went, all innocence. Only Eurylochus stayed behind, he sensed a trap. She ushered them in to sit on high-backed chairs. Then she mixed them a potion, cheese, barley, and pale honey mulled in Pramnian wine. But into the brew she stirred her wicked drugs, to wipe from their memories any thought of home. Once they drained the bowl she filled, suddenly she struck with her wand, drove them into her pigsties, all of them bristling into swine, with grunts, snouts, even their bodies, yes, and only the men's minds stayed steadfast as before. So off they went to their pens, sobbing, squealing, as Circe flung them acorns, cornmeal nuts, and mast, common fodder for hogs that root and roll in mud.
So, Odysseus' crew, hoping to find Circe and get some support from her, are tricked into becoming essentially her slaves, and she turns them into farm animals and pens them up. So, after listening to that portion of the text, I'd like you to answer this question. Circe offers Odysseus' crew food and wine and then turns them into pigs. I'd like you to describe two other examples of either temptation or trickery that we have seen in the Odyssey previously. What other examples of characters who tempt or trick others have we seen in previous episodes of the Odyssey that we have either read or watched? And I'd like you to go ahead and explain that in complete sentences in the blank field below that question. We have one more section for today. Odysseus is going to come to his troops' rescue, and he is going to confront Circe. He wants her help, and he's going to use his intelligence and some help from the gods to get Circe to comply with what he demands.
Leaving the ship and shore, I headed inland, clambering up through hushed, entrancing glades until, as I was nearing the halls of Circe, skilled in spells, approaching her palace, Hermes, god of the golden wand, crossed my path, and he looked for all the world like a young man sporting his first beard, just in the prime and warm pride of youth, and grasped me by the hand and asked me kindly, "Where are you going now, my unlucky friend, trekking over the hills alone in unfamiliar country? And your men are all in there, in Circe's palace, cooped like swine, hot by jowl and thus ties. If you come to set them free, well, I warn you, you won't get home yourself. You'll stay right there, trapped with all the rest. But wait, I can save you, free you from that great danger. Look, here is a potent drug. Take it to Circe's halls. Its power alone will shield you from the fatal day. Let me tell you of all the witch's subtle craft. She'll mix you a potion, lace the brew with drugs, but she'll be powerless to bewitch you. Even so, this magic herb I give will fight her spells. Now here's your plan of action, step by step. The moment Circe strikes with her long, thin wand, you draw your sharp sword, sheathed at your hip, and rush her fast as if to run her through. She'll cower in fear and coax you to her bed. But don't refuse the goddess's bed, not then, not if she's to release your friends and treat you well yourself. But have her swear the binding oath of the blessed gods she'll never plot some new intrigue to harm you once you lie there naked. Never unman you. Strip away your courage. With that, the giant killer handed over the magic herb, pulling it from the earth, and Hermes showed me all its name in nature. Its root is black, and its flower white as milk, and the gods call it moly. Dangerous for a mortal man to pluck from the soil, but not for deathless gods. All lies within their power. Now Hermes went his way to the steep heights of Olympus over the island's woods, while I, just approaching the halls of Circe, my heart a heaving storm at every step, paused at her doors, the nymph with lovely braids. I stood and shouted to her there. She heard my voice. She opened the gleaming doors at once and stepped forth, inviting me in, and in I went, all anguish now. She led me in to sit on a silver-studded chair, ornately carved, with a stool to rest my feet. In a golden bowl she mixed a potion for me to drink, stirring her poison in, her heart aswirl with evil. And then she passed it on. I drank it down, but it never worked its spell. She struck with her wand, and now, she cried, off to your sty, you swine, and wallow with your friends. But I drew my sharp sword sheathed at my hip and rushed her fast as if to run her through. She screamed, slid under my blade, hugged my knees with a flood of warm tears and a burst of winging words. Who are you? Where are you from? Your city, your parents, I'm wonderstruck. You drank my drugs, you're not bewitched. Never has any other man withstood my potion, never once it's passed his lips, and he has drunk it down. You have a mind in you, no magic can enchant. You must be Odysseus, man of twists and turns. Hermes, the giant killer, god of the golden wand, he always said you'd come, homeward bound from Troy in your swift black ship. Come, sheathe your sword, let's go to bed together. Mount my bed and mix in the magic work of love. We'll breed deep trust between us.
So Odysseus fools Circe and gets her to return his crew to their normal human state, and then he's able to get her help. So for your final question, question 3, I'd like you to explain how Odysseus is able to use the support of Hermes to make Circe vulnerable, force her to return his crew to human form, and convince her to help him find his way home. And you can explain that in complete sentences, and you can put it in the text field below that question. Friends, that brings us to the end of our third video lesson. If you'll complete assignment 39 by watching the section of the film that is detailed in the assignment, and then reading the pages from the graphic novel and answering the 5 questions, and then move on to assignment 40 and answer the questions based on the readings we just had, you can complete your outstanding assignments, and then we will join each other again for video lesson 4 in the future. Hope everyone is well, and I look forward to our next lesson.